This video was brought to you by Skillshare. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get a totally free trial of their premium membership. It was the night before Christmas in 2019 when one man decided to sell all of his Uber shares. And this was no ordinary man, for he had been the one who took Uber from a localized idea in California to a worldwide phenomenon. We talk, of course, of Travis Kalanick, a CEO whose attitude helped launch Uber into a new level. But in reality, Kalanick's time in Uber was driven by an alpha male philosophy that led to controversies piling on top of one another. We'll tell you all about that scandal or scandals that got Kalanick out of Uber in this episode of Company Forensics. Kalanick's origins. Kalanick might be one of the most recognizable faces around Uber and around the startup world for that matter. But his origins are smaller. They're always controversial, but smaller. While studying computer engineering at UCLA, he met Michael Todd and Vince Busam, and they had a project called Scour, a peer-to-peer file transfer system to get all of your healthy, wholesome content. Kalanick joined them as an employee, but he calls himself a co-founder nowadays. Such an attitude would be his trademark, and it paid off. He was so determined, investors started believing in him. While Scour was moderately successful, its existence was a wild ride. Kalanick once told Business Insider that just before an event, one of his early investors threatened to kill him if he didn't show the proper respect at the podium. Moments later, Kalanick took to the stage on the verge of tears. He wasn't the only one facing certain doom. Scour ran into serious copyright issues as the record industry sued them for no less than $250 billion. So in 2000, the company had no choice but to fire everyone and declared bankruptcy to just avoid the lawsuit. Kalanick wasted no time. He partnered with another Scour co-founder, Michael Todd, and created another business called Red Swoosh. It focused on networking services and showed some promise, but it was born in a very conflicting time. Right after 9/11, investment in the tech world and business in general shrank. Kalanick's venture was no exception. Short on cash and in an urgency for anybody to invest in them, Todd and Kalanick were desperate. To save money, they took some creative and questionable action. In 2006, Kalanick took his company's remains to Thailand to lower costs, but then things got shady again. The company stopped withholding income taxes from employees' paychecks, which is a criminal offense. Kalanick said Todd was responsible. Todd says both were in on it. Then some emails surfaced incriminating both of them, but in the end, after paying up and promising it wouldn't happen again, neither faced charges. Red Swoosh survived, but barely. It had no heading, and most of its employees had quit. But in another stroke of luck, Akamai Technologies offered $19 million to buy it, and so Kalanick was now a millionaire. He traveled around the world for a year and then bought an LA house called the Jam Pad. It became a shelter for future entrepreneurs like Gary Vaynerchuk and techies from Google. Of course, this was a healthy environment where they discussed their ideas while drinking and playing Wii Sports. But Kalanick didn't just want to party. He wanted to invest. One night, he met Garrett Camp, StumbleUpon's founder, who had come up with a premium ride-hailing service for high-end customers. This idea would become Uber. Joining Uber. Initially, Kalanick joined Uber only as an advisor, though he called himself a chief incubator. Again, now he's recognized as a co-founder. But at first, his job was to manage the company and look for a CEO. Side note, they found a candidate through Twitter, of all places. Indeed, it's an all Silicon Valley fairy tale. A startup finds its CEO through a confident, fun tweet. It seems to work because Graves secured funding for the company when many investors weren't interested. So it seemed strange that Graves was demoted to GM and Kalanick became CEO just 10 months later. Graves would eventually admit that this was a bit of a gut blow to relinquish the CEO role, but he was gracious about it, and many felt Kalanick was ideal as a CEO, again, due to his personality. There is absolutely no way this business would have gotten where it is without Travis and his arrogance, a source told Business Insider. So he was a go-getter and arrogant that would elevate Uber to new levels, but his personality would be the platform for his downfall. His tenure as CEO. Under Kalanick, Uber began aggressively expanding. In May 2011, it went from San Francisco to New York City, where it became a huge success, then all the way to Paris, the first non-US city to have the service. From 2010 to 2011, the company had raised $44 million and was valued at $350 million. By 2013, the company had already reached a $3.7 billion valuation. But as the money came in, Kalanick's abrasive personality became more noticeable. In 2013, before an Uber event in Miami, he sent an email to employees in which the first sentence read, "You better read this or I will kick your ass." Smooth. The email provided guidelines for the event, which included how to have sex. That's right, the email basically said employees had to ask each other for sex instead of assuming that it was the best not to have sex with someone in the same chain of command. His ending statement was, "Yes, that means that Travis will be celibate on this trip. #CEO life, #FML. Just smooth. Of course, this email found its way to the press, which, by the way, seemed to love Kalanick's bold personality. The press seems to have a special taste for this stuff. In 2014, journalist Mickey Rapkin worked as an Uber driver for a week and then wrote about it for GQ. In this article, he recalls meeting Kalanick. When I tease him, Kalanick, about his skyrocketing desirability, he deflects with a wisecrack about women on demand. Yeah, we call that boob-er. Kalanick's attitude permeated all throughout the company, which by then was famous for arriving at a city and, only after authorities reacted, negotiating to stay. Forget about apologies. But things turned dark, or darker, late in 2014. An Uber driver raped a female passenger in India. He was eventually caught and sentenced to life in prison, but the government wanted to pursue action against Uber. The Asia-Pacific supervisor, Eric Alexander, didn't believe the accusation. Somehow, he got the victim's medical records and showed them to Kalanick. And the CEO just read the files and ignored the fact that his executive had obtained confidential information. In fact, nobody did anything for months until the legal team took the medical records and apparently destroyed them. Apparently. Eventually, Alexander was fired, but Kalanick's disregard for the situation drew a lot of criticism. Then reports surfaced of Kalanick partying in escort bars in Korea with other Uber executives. But perhaps most concerningly, many praised his attitude. Quartz magazine once said, "Yes, Travis Kalanick pissed people off, and Uber will be forever indebted to him for it." Because what made Uber great and what has made the company one of the biggest disruptors in the new global economy was that very attitude. But, well, not everybody loved it. Arianna Huffington, an Uber board member, said he needed to evolve from a scrappy entrepreneur to a major global company leader, which he was becoming. And the worst was yet to come. A troubled year. In December 2016, reports surfaced that Kalanick joined Trump's business advisory board. This led to protesters flooding Uber's offices in San Francisco to boycott the service in January 2017. That same day, the Federal Trade Commission fined Uber $20 million for exaggerating possible income to drivers. On February 19, 2017, former employee Susan Fowler wrote a blog post about her year in Uber. She describes how, on her first day as part of the team, her boss made sexual advances. When she reported the incident to HR, the department said that even though this was clearly sexual harassment, it was this man's first offense. All they could do was warn him. Somehow she managed to survive a year at Uber, and when she left and wrote her post, it was so popular it ignited an internal investigation. Leading the team would be none other than former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder. Kalanick assured all of Uber's staff that he was taking action. In an email, he said that his priority was to have a better organization and fight injustice. Very righteous. But the video appeared. It's always a video. In late February, dashcam footage surfaced of Kalanick arguing with an Uber driver who had complained about the cost of driving. Kalanick said, "I make sure every year is a hard year. That's kind of how I roll. If it's easy, I'm not pushing hard enough." Once the trip ended, the driver told him about the struggles to make ends meet with Uber's new, lower fare plans. Kalanick became angry and told him some people don't like to take responsibility for their own shit. And then chaos ensued. Kalanick and two other executives saw the video the same day it came out. As it ended, he collapsed in all fours and said, "I'm terrible." Within 48 hours, Kalanick had set up a meeting to apologize to the driver. The plan was a quick apology, but Kalanick ended up arguing with the driver for an hour and then offered him some Uber stock. An executive tried to stop the payoff. Eventually, Kalanick paid the driver $200,000, but his reputation was shattered. The collapse. With the investigation and articles looming, many executives left Uber. From March 3rd to March 20th, 5 top executives left. The board then fired Anthony Lewandowski, a big name in the self-driving car sector. On June 6th, Uber fired more than 20 staff members related to the sexual harassment accusations. By June 13th, the investigation had concluded, and all we can say is, what the hell was happening at Uber? There were 215 complaints of sexual harassment, and the Holder report emitted no less than 47 recommendations to improve the work environment. Just as the report surfaced, Kalanick took a leave of absence, and eventually he quit his job as CEO. In his final statement, he made it very clear that he left more because the investors wanted him gone than anything else. And somehow Kalanick still had a job. He remained in Uber as a member of the board and made a power struggle of it. He tried to appoint his own members to the board to have more control, but the entire board voted to reduce his voting power. With no bright future in Uber, the company he helped grow into a worldwide business, Kalanick decided to part ways in 2019. He said it was time to focus on philanthropic pursuits and other ventures. But don't feel bad for him. In this weird ecosystem that's Silicon Valley, one can break many rules and still somehow manage to survive. Kalanick sold all of his Uber shares for $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion can buy you anything from an island to a plane to a subscription to Skillshare, which is just $10 a month and a great idea to kickstart your 2021. We received a free Skillshare subscription now that they sponsor our channel, and the other day I came across a fantastic course by Guy Kawasaki called Art of the Start. Guy Kawasaki used to be the chief evangelist at Apple, and he's written numerous books on marketing and entrepreneurship. This course goes over the process of starting a company, launching a product, fundraising, pitching, and socialization, meaning strengthening your social media presence, which is absolutely key if you want your company to get discovered. And once again, you can watch this course for free if you're one of the first 1,000 people to sign up with the link in the description. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week.